From Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world, I'm David Gabbard, and this is the Vegas Faces podcast, where we talk with Las Vegas locals about what it's really like to live in the City of Lights. Whether you're living in Vegas, moving to Vegas, or just visiting Vegas and looking for new adventures, together let's discover the hidden gems that make Sin City the most visited place on earth. What's up, everybody? This is episode 2 of Vegas Faces. How we doing? We made it to episode 2. We've graduated.
We did. Good job.
Yay, part 2, huh?
Yeah. How did the first one do?
I mean, millions?
Yeah, I know.
Of downloads?
I can't keep up with all the emails.
I'm getting emails from New Zealand.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Like, we had people in Antarctica that were like, wow, we listened to you while we were in our scientific tent.
Good job. We did it. So, but we still have to give them an episode 2. I mean, we still have to.
This is for the people.
The people, yeah.
People all over the world tuning in to Vegas Faces.
Yeah. So, okay, where did we leave off? Episode 1, we really covered a lot of bases as far as how we met and how we ended up here. And here we are in Vegas, loving it and hopefully inspiring others, because I think the correct term that people use for me is like a Vegas enthusiast, Vegas cheerleader, and same with you. We cannot stop talking about it enough because it is awesome living here. So let's give them a little bit of a backstory, how we, what careers we kind of landed in here and how we actually shifted from what we were doing back in Chicago and kind of reinvented ourselves. So,
okay, so what we began in Chicago together, meaning like once we met, we were thinking, okay, where do we want our lives to end up?
Right.
Okay. So what were you doing? What was I doing?
Okay, so I'm working in finance for the 10 years that I was, I guess, in my 20s, early 30s, I was working in finance.
Sears Tower, no big deal.
No big deal. Wearing pencil skirts and a lot of high heels and going to a lot of happy hours. And
you were also in Old Town.
Yeah, I lived in Old Town. So
where did I live?
Logan Square.
So for people who don't know, people who are not Chicago people, how do you explain the two different areas of town?
So Old Town, I mean, I was like city girl to the max. Like, I moved into the city when I was 18 years old, and I lived in like Wicker Park, and then I lived in just various parts of the city, and then I ended up in Old Town, which is like, you cannot be more central. You cannot be around more cool things. You're literally on the cusp of like 5 cool neighborhoods in Chicago, and you're right in the middle. So lots to do. And so I meet this like younger guy, comedian. Look, I was not looking for my husband at that time. I was just looking for, like, I wanted to have a good summer. Remember, you were kind of a little bit of a rebound, and you were living in Logan Square. I don't know that I've ever dated anyone who lived in Logan Square, but...
So wait, real fast. Logan Square is, how would you describe it? Like the artsy, hipstery type of neighborhood?
Hipstery, but like, in a few years is probably going to be like the next Wicker Park gentrified and like the cool...
So like up and coming
arts district. That's how I would classify. And
like you won't find a Starbucks. It's all mom and pop
all
coffee
mom
shops.
And pop, yeah. It's hipstery.
Well, it's artsy. Like so my neighbor was a jazz musician.
Yeah.
Okay. And then below where I lived on the 4th floor, no elevator, stairs the whole way. Lived next door to a jazz musician, lived above a chef. And then who else? What kind of other? I feel like, there was a magician in my building too.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's only in Logan Square.
Like you won't find that in Old Town, right?
Right. So Old Town is all the finance, lawyers, doctors, just yuppie central. Everyone kind of looks the same. That year when we met, it was 2016. I remember riding the bus, and it was one North Face jacket after another. I literally to this day sort of hate North Face for that, because it was like...
Why?
Well, because Everybody did it. It's like, can we
I like
just...
North Face. I have a North Face jacket there.
I know you do, but...
I converted. I went from ponchos to North Face.
Okay, well, either way, it was getting ridiculous. Like, one thing about Chicago that I'll say is I traveled a lot to New York when I worked in finance. I went back and forth to New York. And I swear, like, Chicago, love you, Chicago. I will love you till the day I die. But it's such an imposter fashion city. Like, when you go to New York, the fashion and how people dress, it's like they just do not care. Chicago is like a bunch of Midwestern people all thrown into this big city, and they were like the coolest kid in their Ohio town, and now they're living in Chicago. So in that regard, I was getting a little bit like over Chicago, even when I met you, because I was already like entertaining moving somewhere warm. I thought I was going to end up in like Florida or maybe the Carolinas, but never did I.
Then you met a guy who was doing comedy and playing poker and getting free trips to Vegas, and you're like, all right, I'll go check it out.
Well, it worked out because I would never have, known that Vegas was this awesome. But anyway, so working in finance, doing marketing in finance. I was never actually like an analyst or anything like that.
Yeah,
so
I found that out years later, and I was very disappointed. I thought you were going to get us, stock picks and all kinds of crazy stuff. No.
So yeah, I was always
big
in marketing.
letdown, babe. Big letdown.
Yeah, so I'm a very creative person, always kind of in the front office, client service, always in that type of role. So interesting, I came to Vegas when me and David came here, and I thought I was going to stick with finance, and then all of a sudden I got introduced to like a pretty big name here in Vegas real estate team, and he kind of took me under his wings, and he taught me a lot about real estate marketing. And I'm not going to say his name, but really cool guy, taught me so much. A lot, definitely like a very very go personality, very probably an overachiever like I've never seen before. So it was cool, learned a ton, and that's how I really got into what I'm doing now, which is real estate marketing. So I work with a lot of brokerages, Airbnb clients. I work with different real estate agents, both here in Las Vegas and then all over the country. I have worked with some really cool people. Like right now, one of my clients, she's got an Airbnb in Joshua Tree in like the middle of the mountains, just this gorgeous, like $2 million house. I'm working with a guy with Airbnbs in the Outer Banks, and then I'm working with real estate agents all over the world, or all over the country.
Mountains too, right?
Yeah, Smoky Mountains and Florida, and then here in Las Vegas. So I've gotten to really hone in on this, real estate world, Airbnb world, property management, brokerage, and I do a lot of consulting and then a lot of, marketing efforts. So that's where I'm at. And tell everybody kind of how you transition from comedy poker and to sort of what we're doing now with your career.
Yeah, I would say it was like you couldn't even like predict or plan. I feel like the plan was, we're going to move to Vegas. I'm going to play poker in the daytime, and I'm going to do comedy at nighttime. And we did do that. Like, I would say for the first year that we moved here, in fact, I was actually kind of like getting like burnt out on comedy, and poker was like really like making comedy. I'll never forget, I knew a comedian who I actually played poker with a lot. And this comedian in Chicago won a jackpot in Chicago. The jackpot, no joke, she won like $90,000. And I'll never forget, she told me, she goes, yeah, I deposited my poker check and my Laugh Factory comedy check on the same day. $90,000 from poker, $20 from the Laugh Factory. Yeah. and I was just like, yeah, you know what? Like, comedy's a dream. That it's a great craft. It's one of those professions that like you're not going to make money for a very long time.
I will say this though, for a guy who was very unconventional, like you probably had quadruple what I had in savings. So
I was very frugal. I'll never forget the day, and I give you this all the time. I give you crap all the time. Never forget. Okay, here's the thing about like when you hang out with comics, it's kind of sad, but it's also funny. In that, like, you go out to dinner with comics, like everyone's ordering water. Like there's no Diet Cokes, there's no lemonades. It's waters all around, And we're talking like a table of like 8 comics. Like the poor waiter comes in and is like, oh yeah, I'm going to get a good tip off of this. No, not with us. We don't even order full meals. Like we'll order sides. Like it's pretty rough. But also like, comedy just doesn't pay. So it's like, we're just looking at the sides and we're like, yeah, I'll get like a side of bacon for $3 and a hard-boiled egg for $2.50 and that'll be my meal. And the waiter's like, okay, and that's it. And so I'll never forget this, babe. You're gonna have to, till the day we die, I'm gonna always mention this. Never forget, you called me cheap one day. Well, and that changed the course of my life.
Here's what I'll say. When we first started dating, you were definitely not cheap towards me.
I totally was though. Like I was totally like counting. I was totally like, if we went on a date and you ordered like a $6 Coke, I was like,
that's what I was about to say. In the beginning, it was
I didn't get it. Yeah.
No, but in the beginning, we were just going out for drinks and whatever. It wasn't a big deal, and we were just.
Yeah, this was like past the honeymoon phase.
This was past the honeymoon phase when we were actually like, I think we were already living together.
I can't be my cheap self on the first or second date.
No. And that would have turned me off completely.
100%.
I hate cheap people in general. I actually have like this philosophy that I really never really talk about not having enough money or
living in abundance, right?
It's all about living in abundance. Like,
because otherwise you're in this like poverty, like famine mentality where you're so penny pinching to where you can't even allow yourself to progress because all you're doing is hoarding the little amount that you have. So for me, I was like literally just throwing everything in savings. I was like, I would literally buy like a Subway footlong for $5 and split it in half, and that was 2 meals.
Yeah.
And then, like I was like, okay, if I could just spend less than like $20 a day, like I'm okay. Which is like, I guess, when you're a struggling comic, like sure, but like for the long term, like it's not sustainable.
Funny enough, like I didn't grow up with money. I grew up very middle class, and if anything, being an immigrant, there was years where we barely, we didn't have a ton of money. So I don't know why, but I've always been like, nope, I'm rich. And so even in college, when I had like, $32 in my checking account and my friends were like, let's go out for drinks. I'm the first one who's like, okay, let's get 5 shots and hopefully it's under 32 because then I can afford these 5 shots. Because even though maybe like, saving is something you've taught me through the years and I've gotten a lot better at it, but to always live in that abundance and like, I remember when all my friends would be like, I don't have money, I can't go out tonight. I never use those words. It was always like, I probably shouldn't go out tonight. Like I never say like, I don't have money or, oh my God, God, we have so many bills. Like, don't even put that out into the universe. Cause I feel like it like makes you who you are when you put that out and then you become a poor person.
Well, there's a difference between saying I can't afford it and I can't afford it yet.
Yeah,
huge difference. Like you're so limiting yourself on the one, and then the other one, you're like, okay, I'll get there. Like one day I'll get there.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, nope, I'll never get there, and here's where I'm always going to be.
Yeah.
So I'll say you definitely took me out of my shell of this like really frugal comic that I don't even know what I was doing other than just like trying to like spend the least amount of money per day.
The funny thing is now, I mean, we are not.
Yeah, now you yell at me because you're like, babe,
enough.
It's enough.
Enough with the spending. Yeah.
And I make sure to always bring up, hey, remember the day?
But we still live very much in abundance. Like we always do what we want. We go where we want.
That's not to say that we're just like balling out of control and just being irresponsible.
Within reason, yeah. But listen, the Amazon orders, they come in quite frequently. That's something I need to work on. But either way, it's good to have that mentality of like,
it was a real you really taught me like it was a real mindset shift.
Yeah.
To where I was like, oh yeah, okay, like I'm either going to be like on defense my whole life or I'm going to be motivated to like level up and constantly improve our lifestyle.
Yeah. I don't even like when people I don't even like to burden people like, if I'm having like work issues or I'm not liking my job, it plants seeds in people's heads. So if you're like, oh, I hate my job, or I don't know if I swear to God, I feel like I'm getting fired or whatever. All of a sudden people put you in that category of like, oh, they're not doing well. And it just manifests more negative energy. So in my, I keep that stuff super private, because I'm going to always flourish. Like I will always be okay. We will always be okay. And I tell you all the time, like money comes and goes, jobs, all of that. It's all about how you feel. It's about a mindset. It's about just thinking positive. And I've manifested everything that I've ever wanted in my life. And, it's just a journey that you have to keep like believing in. And the manifestation of positive thinking, it goes a long way.
Like to say it's going to be okay even when it's not.
Yes,
like
exactly.
to have the confidence and the ability to be able to say things will be fine. It's going to be rough. We will get through this rough patch.
Yeah.
So you definitely kind of like changed my mentality.
You know what's funny? When I was in college, I remember always being so broke and calling my mom. Now, listen, to my mom, I would always tell her the truth, but I was always like, Mom, I have no money. My phone bill's about to get shut off. And I'd be crying. And she goes, listen, if your problem is money right now, you have no problems. Like, you called me crying and I got scared because I thought, and sure, money is obviously a problem, something that you need.
It's always going to be a battle. It's always going to be.
But it's a constant, it comes and goes in the sense that it's.
But if you let that, dang it, excuse me. If you let that constantly control you though, and like keep you in this like fear state for your whole life, like what kind of life is that?
It's a jail cell. I mean, I have friends, and I've talked about this with so many people, like the whole constantly outwardly saying like your money struggles or your fears of losing your job or having money issues. It literally just perpetuates, and it becomes a thing when really just sort of shift it to the side and say like, money, I have money. Money will always come to me. And then it really does. But
yeah, it sounds cheesy, but it works.
It does. It really does. So anyway, so
where do we leave off? So I'm a struggling comic and struggling poker player in Chicago, while you are flourishing in the Sears Tower.
I was at the top of my
world.
career. I was, going to all these events, and I mean, I was doing great in life.
And then you met me.
No, it's not even that. It's that you showed me that, like, all of that is great. All that cookie cutter life is so great. But like, I was still yearning for so much more. And I think what you showed me is how to live. Like I felt alive, in a way that I hadn't with anybody else. And believe me, I dated doctors and lawyers and everybody else. So I remember even one of my girlfriends was like, he does what for a living? And I was like, yeah, he's a comedian poker player. And I was so proud of that. And I remember, I think I said this in the first episode, my mom, I told her, and she's like, that's awesome. Like, and honestly, from the moment. I
was thrown off. I was like, huh? They actually think that's cool? Like, it was so foreign to me for people to think that that's like acceptable, because I was so used to it not being acceptable, which, like, honestly, as a parent now, like, I would be nervous if our kids were like, hey, I'm going to go and like do these professions that are like 95% not going to work out in our favor.
What I knew about you, first of all, let's just talk about this. I mean, we're both Jewish. So my mom saw a nice Jewish boy.
There we go. Everybody stop tuning in.
So my mom saw a nice Jewish boy who was college educated, and he had this passion in his eyes, and he wanted to try this thing so badly. And listen, the chances of making it in the comedy world or, hitting it in the World Series of Poker, they're smaller.
Slim to none. Yeah.
They're smaller than taking, your 9-to-5 job and getting a 401k plan and health insurance. But it was the passion, and it was the life behind it, and just how much you admired it. And I knew that whether or not it was going to last or not, like, I admired the person and the person I was getting involved with. And that's it. I mean,
it opened doors that would have never opened for me had I not embarked on that path. So you can say, oh yeah, he wasn't successful because he never got on Netflix. But also the people that we met, like the opportunities that came our way, the like where our lives ended, we would have never ended up in Vegas had I not taken that journey in the first place.
That was cool. So we end up in Vegas, and so David, so I get a job. I'm still in finance, but I'm more going towards the real estate. I'm going into like private equity real estate investments.
I'll say like real estate kind of sort of just started to enter our lives, like without it, like not even forced, not even close to being forced. It just kind of started things. Just we started to gravitate towards real estate without even realizing it. Yeah. Starting with you.
So yeah, we're looking for a house, and we're about to buy like, our first little home. And then David's parents come into the mix, and they're the cutest people ever. I'm obsessed with them. I think I'm the only person in the world who like loves my in-laws. But
hi, Mom. Hi,
Mr.
Dad.
G. So they come into the mix, and they're kind of like scoping out Vegas. And David's mom also went to school in Arizona and obsessed with it.
My dad's a businessman.
Businessman.
And I think also secretly, I think my dad was like, okay, if I throw him this type of opportunity, maybe he'll finally stop doing this comedy poker shit.
Yeah. I could see that coming from your dad. But anyway, so we're looking for a house, and then all of a sudden your mom is like, let's buy a house in Vegas. And I think they were just entertaining the idea of maybe having a second home. But anyway, so we found this like killer deal. It was a 4,000 square foot house. We got it for...
But why was it a killer deal? Because it wasn't a killer deal for us, and we'll explain why, but also on paper, on a spreadsheet, for sure, killer deal.
Yeah, just the square footage, neighborhood, it was awesome. And
great price. This is 2019?
This is 2018, I believe.
No, we moved here October 2018, so the following year,
Yeah.
I want to say like by May 2019, you had just gotten pregnant.
Yeah.
And which ironically, the second you got pregnant, I started losing in poker like no other. Like, I don't know if something went off in my brain to where I'm like, all of a sudden panicking subtly in a weird way. But either way, I was having like the worst losses in poker, and we were like, ooh, we might need to adjust here.
Yeah.
Like we might need to find something else, at least in the meantime, until poker picks back up. Like it was so bad to where all of a sudden this house opportunity where, in short, basically the deal was, parents were like, okay, hey, we find this giant house for a really good price, but the catch is that the entire house needs to be gutted and remodeled. Like every square inch of this house had an issue with it, a problem with it that we had to fix. So the deal was, if you guys fix it, live in it, have the baby, and then we'll flip it afterwards. Yeah. So that was, and we knew nothing about flipping homes. We knew nothing about remodeling. We'd only been in Vegas for about 6 months. And we had no contractors. We had nobody that we knew how to fix, the things that we needed to fix. So the whole thing was like this giant learning curve. And on top of that, our time clock was 9 months. Like you literally had just gotten pregnant. We'd just taken this on. We had no plan of what exactly needs to be done other than the entire house. Yeah. But like no like actual step-by-step, like, okay, let's do this. Let's do the bathrooms. Let's do the kitchen. Let's do the living room. Let's do the upstairs. So, and then not to mention, we were like interviewing like 20 contractors a day because we had no idea who was going to take on this job. Was it going to be one person? Was it going to be multiple people? Like we had nobody. And even though 9 months seemed like a lot of time, like it literally came like Maya was born like within 2 weeks of the house being finished.
I mean, it was insane. Like,
and Maya was born early too, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was born 3 weeks early, or 4 weeks even. And
I'll never forget. It was like the one day we had no contractors coming to the house. Like everything was done. I was like, I just want to like lay in my underwear and do nothing. Yeah. And then my 6 a.m. You're like, babe, we got to go. And I was like, are you sure? Yeah.
So this house was the coolest thing ever. We turned it from this like, it literally was like almost
very 80s style. 80s, mirrors like, everywhere, a lot of glass, a lot of mirrors.
Yeah, like it was just in shambles, and we turned it into like a castle.
But also the people living there, like I don't know if it was squatters. Like it had a history that was not like people. There was a reason this house was the price that it was for the size and for the neighborhood that it was in.
Yeah, it was like in one of the most beautiful neighborhoods.
And we were the only boneheads that were like, oh yeah, we can do this. We don't have a crew together. We have nobody assembled, but yeah, we got this.
Well, fast forward, David's parents did end up selling it last year, and I think they put in a lot
for double for what they paid.
Got. Yeah,
but also the luck factor of nobody saw the market doing what it did for 2020 and 2021. Yeah. So we got to be part of that wave, which was pretty fun and cool. But during the remodel though, like isn't a remodel like one of like the top 3 reasons that like, marriages fail and things like that? Like it's like traumatic.
The magnitude
it's like rough.
Of this remodel, I think.
And I know that sounds very like privileged and very like first world problems, compared to
it does, sure, But it is a first world.
We were living in plastic. We were living in dust. We didn't have the gas company turn the hot water on or the heat. Like we had like no heat. I think we had
I had like nose. I'm like 8, 9
our noses were bleeding because we're breathing in all this construction dust day by day. It was like, but also it's kind of like, if maybe a metaphor of something like when you go through something like that, when you come out the other side, now it's like we know everything there is to know about fixing a house.
Yeah, like David went into it like hating every single moment of it, but now he is actually like amazing at anything that has to do. We're talking
like 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, yes, the HOA doesn't let you do construction on Sundays. We still do construction on Sundays. We got yelled at by the neighbors. Like, everything was a learning curve, but I do feel like we got like a PhD in like home remodeling, property management, what have you.
And then ironically, and so you kind of like the comedy was sort of starting to die down because, listen, I'm really pregnant and
it was the nightlife. I love the craft, but staying out till 5 a.m. just wasn't sustainable, especially because before poker got bad, I was really taking it seriously like a job, and I wanted to be able to like have my morning and wake up early and be productive, and comedy just the nightlife of comedy was getting in the way of that.
I will say at one point poker was like insane. Like we were just doing so, and I say we because, I'm there for support, but you were doing incredible at poker at one point, and then all of a sudden, really, like
it was the minute like when we got pregnant, which like we were planning it. It's not like it was unplanned, but it was just like something went off in my mind. I don't even know how to explain it. Where maybe subtly I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can do this for myself, and I can do this maybe for myself and for you, but for kids, it just the pressure was maybe too much, and I probably forced it too much. And you know how like if you go to the casino, you play blackjack or whatever, and you're like, I have to win, you're probably going to lose. Yeah. But if you go in there like with a drink and you're having a fun time and you're not even counting your chips and you don't care what time it is, that's when you win, right? I mean, the most relaxed. And I was not in that relaxed state. I was in this, oh my God, I got to make money like now, like yesterday.
So the ironic part is right after I deliver Maya, and mind you, I have a good job and everything, and we're living in this gorgeous house and that we're renting from his parents, but David lands like the best job, like doing
like across the street, like
literally walking distance from our new house.
We're talking a commercial plaza, property management.
How many square feet? It's huge.
Oh, it's like 100,000 square feet of rentable space. I mean, we're talking like office building with 100 offices, salon, spa, high-end restaurants on the water, cafes, casino, and a temple.
Yeah, it's crazy. And here is David, like, just bonded with the owner, loved the fact that he, like, gutted this 4,000 square foot home. And all of a sudden...
that wasn't even on my resume. And I was like, oh, yeah, by the way, I did this, home remodel / flip. And they're like...
I love it.
They're
You're
like
hired.
and they're like, in the neighborhood? And I'm like, yeah, it's right there. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. So not only did I get to learn residential property management, I also now got to learn commercial property management as well as commercial real estate. I mean, these people were acquiring other plazas and other giant commercial properties. So I really got to like kind of just take a back seat and learn what all of that looks like. I mean, like I used to be afraid because I'm not a handyman. I can't fix shit. Like there's nothing I can like. I'll have to watch a YouTube video for 4 hours just to learn how to like fix like a baseboard. Like I don't even. So, but now having these jobs and having gone through that, none of that intimidates me anymore. To where I'm like, oh, okay, even if I can't fix it, we now know a guy. We know like 3 guys who could fix it.
We've definitely gotten a good we have a good team behind us whenever we need anything. So that's a plus. But
so it went from there, and then eventually, with Mary being in real estate marketing and me being in property management, we said, well, what are we doing at this point not having a real estate license? Like, it's kind of silly, especially when people were like, oh, you're in the real estate world. Can we use you? And we're like, oh, no, we're not licensed, but we can recommend you somebody. Then
and
we're like, what are we doing?
Literally all my friends in Las Vegas are real estate agents. So it's hard. I had to take myself back and just be like, okay, yes, my circle, everybody I know is a real estate agent because I work in that world. But there's a lot of opportunities out there in Vegas to make money in real estate if you do it smart. And I'm doing marketing for other people, so I might as well be doing it for me and my husband. And that's kind of how where we are now is we started our own group. So I specialize. I can stage a home. I literally walk into people's houses and I want to rearrange it the minute I walk in. I've actually helped a lot of people with, I do a lot of home goods runs, and some of my Airbnb clients, I've literally picked out like a lot of their, furniture and fixtures. So I specialize in that. I love the interior design part. I love marketing their home. you know, all that stuff. And then David is now, you know, the guy who's going to be pretty much running our real estate business here in Las Vegas. And it's really exciting because he's been a part of my real estate journey. So now he's heard it all, seen it all. And now,
like, I'm licensed, but you know way more about like the ins and outs of real estate than I do. So like in a way, like we have to be a team, because I'm like, hey, babe, can you tell me about this? Can you tell me about that? She's like, what? How are you the one who's licensed? Like,
but also, you know so much more about property management. So
it's a great fit. We, you know, my weaknesses are your strengths and vice versa.
Yeah, and you're going to add so much value to the client, because you can, like, you walk into a home and you foresee things that other people don't, and which is interesting. But yeah, this journey of real estate has really brought us to actually love real estate. Like, we're such dorks.
It's wild. Yeah, we just literally kind of just fell into it, all starting with this house, probably stemming from the fact that my parents were like, how are we going to get our son out of this comedy poker BS that he's doing?
And here we are, and like...
Which, you know, like, at the time, I mean, that house haunts me. The stuff we went through, like, I'm still cringing, because I remember telling people that I knew that were in property management and real estate for like 20 plus years, and they're like, I've never seen an issue like that before. And I'm like, really? Because I'm having it for the first flip that we've ever experienced. And it's just, during it, we wanted to like jump off a ledge. But after that, having gone through that, we were like, wow, what a learning opportunity that was.
Yeah. And it's led us to, you know, to love everything about the whole real estate world. Now we have our own property, our own home. And then we also are part investors of another home that we're renting out. So my dream, I don't care about cars. I really don't care about jewelry or clothing. I literally just want homes.
Well, I'm glad you said that with your birthday coming up, babe.
Hey, I like jewelry somewhat, so don't disappoint me. But I literally... all I see myself is just owning lots and lots of homes. And because real estate to me is, it's everything. You know, if you're going to put money into anything, this is where you put your money into. And
like, we're not even trying to sound like one of those like YouTube gurus or whatever like that. Like, this is, you know, this is our experience so far. This is our journey so far with it. But to me, just learning the ins and outs of fixing and remodeling a home, like, that's a skill that stays with you for the rest of your life. Like, I feel like that's something that just doesn't, you know, I mean, even with cars, they're going like electric now. So like, if you know how to fix a car, that's like an antique, that's like a classic, you know, thing of the past now. Like, you're not going to,
not yet, but
sure, but it's heading there. Whereas like with houses, like people are always going to need to know how to like drywall and like do random fixes and stuff like that. So either way, it's quite a journey that we've been through so far, and that we're still continuing on. And it's led us here. It's led us here in Vegas.
Yeah, and making a podcast, I never thought in a million years. David is the most avid. So, fun fact, I'm definitely, English is my second language, and David is always correcting my words. But anyways, he is literally on a podcast 24/7. I swear to God, he falls asleep with a podcast in his ear. And here I am now experiencing it with him. So it's exciting.
Yeah, babe. I always tell you that you're like Gary Vee, like, because he's also like Russian, Ukrainian, or whatever. Yeah. And he has the language barrier thing. Like, he's written New York Times bestseller books, but like.
Oh, people would never know that I'm English as a second language, but if you saw what was in my head, I was at my daughter's dance the other day, and I met this mom who was like, you know, a lot more Russian than I was, probably here, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 years. And she started talking to me in Russian the whole time, and then she called me and talked in Russian. And I couldn't even switch for 2 days between, I was all of a sudden just thinking in Russian.
Do you still think in Russian, or do you think in English?
I think a lot in Russian. I think majority in English, but I can easily have like a very good conversation in Russian. Like, I can have a heartfelt conversation in Russian. I'm not just like, you know, third grade, you know, vocabulary. Like, I could have a heartfelt. So it's sometimes hard to transition. But I'll just say this, like, my respect for people who are bilingual is just because I know what I battle with every day. Like, it's a constant battle to switch back and forth between the two languages. And I express myself better in English, but then like my parents express themselves better in Russian, like they're their true selves in their language versus when they're, in English, I feel like they're
but
not
they
even.
also moved here in their 40s.
Yeah. So,
and even what's fascinating is that you moved here when you were 6. Your brother was what, 13?
13, yeah.
And he has an accent, but you do not.
Yeah. I think they said like right around 8 is where you'll either retain your accent or not, but you'll definitely feel it in my vocabulary. Like I'll send texts, and sometimes one of my best friends is always like, hashtag Russia called, you don't live there anymore, because I'll write something that is just I mix it up. Like I'm definitely guilty of that. But overall, and here I am working in marketing and writing a lot of content. But anyway, so I make it work. We make it work. And we love sharing this with you guys. So
yeah. So, hey, what is that? Episode 2? We did it?
we did it.
Wow.
Can we click at the end too? Or is it just
No, I mean, I don't know. I'm still learning the whole audio editing thing.
okay. Because I really like the clicking part.
Yeah, I don't know. Clapping in the mic, whatever. But yeah, I mean, hey, 2 episodes in, we've got a lot that we want to do with this podcast, but at the end of the day, we really just want to share our Vegas experience living in Las Vegas. We do not live at Caesar's Palace, even though people ask if we do. And really just like, hey, this is our life. We live in Las Vegas, but we also, I feel like we have somewhat of a normal life compared to what people might think you have when you live in Las Vegas. So,
and we definitely want to introduce you guys to some really cool people that we've met here and their backstories. And it's going to be really fascinating because we want to deep dive into who are the people of Vegas. And I promise you, they're just a little bit more fun than most other cities.
I feel like they all have a story. Like
it's
somehow,
a story,
I mean, Vegas nickname, one of the nicknames other than Sin City or City of Lights, is the city of second chances.
Well, you know what's funny? Like I said, in Chicago, it's all people that are like the best of their small hometown in Ohio, and they all gather in this big city. Well, I feel like Vegas is the people who take chances, the people who want just a little bit of an edge. And I'm drawn more to people who have a little bit more of that edge. Not that I'm edgy at this point. I'm a mom of 2 kids and a wife, but just a little bit of that mindset that has, it's powerful to have a little bit of that mentality and embrace the edginess of the city. But also, it's very normal here. And
yeah, I could see that. Yeah, risk averse, but also, not too far over the edge. I mean, this is a city that every vice imaginable is available at your fingertips 24/7. So you really have to have some level head discipline.
I feel like if you're a person with vices, you're going to find that
not going to survive in this town.
Well, no, but you're going to find that. I mean, if you're from like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and you have an alcohol problem, like you're going to find alcohol. If you love to gamble, like you're going to drive to the casinos, you're going to figure it out. So people with vices, they find their vice wherever they are. But here,
I see what you're saying.
It's
so
a little bit,
regardless of if you're in Vegas or not, you're still going to gravitate towards it.
So it's just gives you just a little bit of that edge because you really do live in like the entertainment capital of the world, and at your fingertips you could have like world-class experiences that people are literally flying from like Dubai to experience, or Japan.
Yeah, it's wild. Like you'll meet someone from Sweden, you're like, how long is that flight? Like I just drove 20 minutes and I'm at the strip. Like,
so we're lucky. I think like we're blessed to be here and share with people just how awesome Vegas is for the everyday person. Not just the person who's dealing blackjack on the strip, just the everyday person.
Yeah, like we want to introduce you to like, therapists and lawyers and chiropractors and people that have professions outside of the casino industry. Also, we would love to have casino professionals here as well, but kind of just have a mix of both of what is it like to have an everyday life here in Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
All right, episode 2. Thank you so much. Can't wait to do episode 3.